They said every classroom in that school had been cataloged before it was condemned. But the room I found wasn't on any map, and when I opened the door, I swear someone inside had just finished teaching. I've been an urban explorer for a few years. Mostly harmless stuff, old factories, forgotten malls, the occasional hospital. There's something about places left behind that fascinates me, like they're still holding their breath. Last summer, I heard about a high school on the edge of town that had been shut down in the early 2000s after structural issues. No one ever explained what that meant, but locals said the district fenced it off and left it to rot. I decided to check it out one Sunday morning. Getting in was easier than I expected. Half the chain link fence was already bent down, and the back door had a missing panel. The smell hit me first: wet plaster, mildew, and old paper. My flashlight cut through the dark hallway, landing on rows of faded lockers. Some still had stickers or taped up schedules from 20 years ago. The deeper I went, the stranger it felt. The air had that heavy, muffled quality, like the walls were listening. Every sound my boots on the tile, the groan of a door hinge seemed too loud. I started taking pictures for my blog. The science wing was mostly collapsed, and the gym was full of graffiti and pigeon feathers. Then I found a hallway that wasn't on any of the blueprints I'd downloaded the night before. It was narrower than the others, tucked behind a row of lockers that looked newer than the rest. The tiles changed to different color, different pattern. It felt wrong, like it didn't belong to the same building. At the end of the hall was a single door. Unlike the others, it wasn't marked. No room number, no class of 2003 graffiti, just plain wood with a brass knob. When I touched it, the metal was cold, almost wet. I pushed it open. The smell hit me immediately, not rot or dust, but something weirdly familiar. Chalk dust and perfume, like the floral kind older teachers used to wear. My flashlight beam swept across rows of desks, perfectly lined up, not overturned, not decayed. There was even chalk residue on the blackboard, faint outlines of equations and names half erased. It looked like the class had just ended, and everyone had stepped out for lunch. I remember whispering to myself, "What the hell?" The windows were boarded from the outside, but a single beam of light cut through a crack, landing on a teacher's desk at the front. There was a mug there, a stack of graded papers, and a framed photo turned face down. I started filming. The camera mic picked up the creak of the floorboards, the soft drip of water somewhere above. Then, something else. A faint tapping sound. I froze. It was rhythmic, deliberate, like chalk tapping against a blackboard. My light chirped toward the front of the room. Nothing moved, but when I got closer, I saw it. A single word freshly written in white chalk. Quiet. I stood there for a few seconds, my mind scrambling for logic. Maybe condensation had streaked the board in a way that looked like writing. Maybe my light was catching old marks wrong. But the word was crisp, clean. Then something clattered behind me. I spun around one of the desks and shifted slightly, just enough to make that sound. I started backing toward the door, but then I heard a faint whisper, almost like someone repeating a lesson to themselves. It came from the far corner, near the boarded-up windows. I raised my light and saw the faint outline of a figure sitting at one of the desks. Shoulders slumped, hands folded neatly on the surface. I blinked, and it was gone. The smell of chalk grew stronger, burning my nose. My flashlight flickered, and for a split second, I saw the chalk again, dragging across the board by itself, spelling out another word. Late? I didn't wait to see more. I bolted for the door and nearly ripped it off its hinges. The hallway outside felt colder now, darker somehow. When I turned back, I swear I heard chairs scraping across the floor in that room like students standing up in unison. I ran through the maze of hallways until I burst through a side exit into daylight. I didn't stop running until I got back to my car. When I finally caught my breath, I checked my camera footage. Most of it looked normal dark halls, my flashlight beam, some broken lockers. But when I got to the part with the secret hallway, the video glitched. The timestamp froze. And when I paused the frame right before I opened the door, there was a reflection in the doorknob, a face behind me. I hadn't noticed it before. A woman's face, smiling. That night, I tried pulling up the blueprints again. I thought maybe I'd misread them. But when I zoomed into the section where I found the hallway, there was something odd. Someone had drawn over that part in red pen, like they'd tried to black it out. I reached out to a local historian who had written about the school's closure. When I mentioned the hall and described where it was, she got quiet. She told me that before the school was condemned, one of the teachers, Ms. H, had gone missing. Her classroom had been sealed off during renovations after a collapse in that section. They never found her body. The rumor was that she'd stayed late one evening grading papers when the floor caved in. But when emergency crews arrived, the door she was in wouldn't open. And when they finally got it open days later, the room was empty. She finished by saying, that section was demolished before they finalized the blueprints. There shouldn't be a hallway there at all. I tried showing her the footage, but when I plugged my camera back in, the files were gone. Every single one deleted. Now, sometimes when I walk past old buildings, I catch that same faint smell of chalk and perfume. And every time I do, I swear I can hear that quiet, rhythmic tapping again, like someone waiting for the class to begin. Every night at exactly 2:17 the same light turned on in the teacher-as lounge of a school that had been closed for over 3 decades. And every time someone tried to check it out, the cameras glitched right before the light went out again. I used to work as a night security guard for the district's facilities division. It wasn't glamorous, but it was easy money. Check the feeds, walk the perimeter, report trespassers. Most of the time, I was stationed at new schools under construction or warehouses filled with old desks and chairs. But in 2021, they sent me to a place called Oakwood Elementary. The building had been shut down since the early 90s after a mold issue and a string of unexplained electrical problems. It sat at the edge of a wooded lot, boarded up and forgotten. The district used it for storage, but that year they decided to install cameras and alarms because of a rise in vandalism. I was assigned to monitor the live feed from a small trailer parked outside. At first, it was uneventful. Dusty hallways, cobwebs, a few raccoons scurrying across the gym floor. But after a few nights, something started happening that I couldn't explain. At 2:17 a.m., almost down to the second, the light in the teacher's lounge on the second floor would flicker on. It wasn't a slow power surge either. It was sharp, like someone flipped the switch. The rest of the building stayed dark, but that one room glowed faintly through the boarded windows. The first time I saw it, I thought it was an electrical glitch. The place was ancient after all. But when I radioed my supervisor, he sounded uneasy. "Yeah," he said, "that's been happening for years. Just log it. Don't go inside." I laughed it off. "Why not?" "Because every time we've sent someone in there," he said, "the feed cuts out, and when it comes back, the light's off." That's all I'll say. That answer didn't sit right with me. The next night, I watched closely. 2:17 a.m., the light blinked on again. The cameras glitched for half a second, static flooding the screen. Then it cleared, and the lounge was softly illuminated, just like before. I zoomed in on the feed. I couldn't see much, just a long table, a few chairs, and the faint outline of a coffee maker sitting on the counter. But something in the corner caught my attention. A dark shape near the window. It wasn't moving, but the light hit it strangely, like someone standing very still, half in shadow. Then the camera froze. For about 3 seconds, The screen turned to a smear of digital noise, and when it came back, the light was gone. I decided I needed to see it for myself. The next night, I parked my car closer to the building, just outside the old playground. The wind moved through the rusted swings, making them creak in rhythm. I had my flashlight, my walkie, and my phone streaming the camera feed. 2:16 a.m., I stood by the front door, my breath fogging in the cold air. 2:17, the light flickered on upstairs. I waited for the usual glitch, but this time it stayed steady. I could see it clearly through one of the upper windows, a yellow glow pulsing softly behind warped glass. Against my better judgment, I went in. The air inside was stale and heavy, like a place sealed too long. My flashlight cut through layers of dust. The halls were lined with faded murals and cracked trophy cases. Every sound, each footstep, each breath seemed to echo twice. The closer I got to the stairs, the more I smelled something faintly sweet, like old coffee and cigarette smoke. It didn't make sense, but it grew stronger with every step. When I reached the second floor, I could see the light leaking from under the lounge door at the end of the hall. It was slightly ajar. I raised my phone to record. The screen showed static just like the feed in the trailer. The closer I got, the more distorted it became until the picture vanished entirely. I pushed the door open. The teacher's lounge looked frozen in time. Coffee mugs still sat on the counter, a corkboard on the wall, covered in yellowed flyers and staff photos. A stack of yearbooks was piled near a broken microwave. The fluorescent light buzzed softly above, flickering at the edges. There was no one there. Then I noticed the air felt warmer in that room, not from the light, but from something else. It was like stepping into a space that was still alive, while the rest of the building was dead. On the table were papers spread out in neat rows, lesson plans, attendance sheets, even a calendar open to March 1992. One of the papers had a name printed at the top, Ms. Hanley. I remembered that name from the district file. She'd been a teacher there when the school shut down. According to records, she died suddenly, collapsing in the lounge after hours one night. As I scanned the papers, I heard a faint scrape behind me, like a chair leg moving. I turned. One of the chairs had shifted slightly away from the table. The light flickered again once, twice then steadied. Something whispered behind me, a breath close to my ear. "Do you have hall duty?" I spun around, but no one was there. The air felt charged, electric. I could feel pressure in my ears, like the room was full of static. Then the light dimmed, and I saw her reflection in the black window glass. A woman sitting at the table, head tilted toward me, a faint smile curling on her face. The bulb popped. Darkness swallowed the room. I bolted for the door, my flashlight stuttering in my hand. By the time I hit the stairwell, my phone buzzed violently. When I looked, the camera feed was back on, but the lounge was empty again. Only one thing had changed. The chair I'd seen move before was now pulled all the way out, facing the door. I quit the next morning. A few weeks later, I got a call from a friend who still worked the district shift. He said the light hadn't come on in weeks until last night. This time, though, there were two shadows in the room, one sitting at the table and one standing just inside the door. He went in with me, and we both swore the hallway was only a few dozen feet long. I came out hours later alone, and the doorway we entered through had vanished. It started as an ordinary night for urban exploration. My friend Mark and I had been chasing abandoned buildings for years, factories, hospitals, old hotels. But when we heard about Crestwood High, a school condemned in the late 80s, we couldn't resist. It had been empty for decades, hidden behind a chain-link fence and thick overgrowth. Local rumors said it was haunted, but nothing specific, just that people go in and they don't always come out the same. We slipped past the fence around midnight. The air smelled of mildew and decayed wood. Our flashlights cut through darkness that seemed to swallow everything beyond their beams. The main entrance doors were rusted shut, so we crawled through a small gap in the side hallway. Inside, the school was silent. The floors creaked beneath our boots, dust rising with every step. Broken lockers leaned against the walls, and old posters hung crooked, faded to ghostly outlines. I laughed nervously, trying to shake the feeling that we were being watched. Mark didn't answer. He never laughed back anymore, just kept walking. We found the hallway that would change everything on the second floor. It started narrow, almost ordinary. Fluorescent lights hung from the ceiling, though most were long dead. The paint on the walls had peeled into jagged patterns, and the floor tiles were chipped. Mark shined his flashlight ahead. "Looks short enough," he said. "Maybe 50 feet tops." We started down. At first, it was as we expected. Just a hallway, lined with empty classrooms. I could hear Mark's boots echo ahead of me, the soft rattling of my backpack, the occasional drip of water somewhere far away. But after a few turns, I noticed something odd. The hall didn't seem to end. "Mark," I called, "are you seeing this?" He didn't answer. His figure was still ahead, but the hall stretched further than it should. I checked the old blueprint I had downloaded on my phone. This section was supposed to be maybe 40 feet long before turning left into the gym hallway. But we hadn't reached the turn. The air felt colder. My breath was visible in the flashlight beam. The walls seemed to lean inward slightly, like the building itself was closing in on us. My stomach tightened. "Mark, we should turn back," I whispered. "I'm right here," he replied, almost too casually, though his voice sounded far away. I ran to catch up, but the moment I took a step forward, the hallway seemed to stretch again. The lights flickered. I swear I saw a doorway appear and disappear in the corner of my vision doors that shouldn't exist, doorways that weren't on the blueprint. "Mark," I shouted. "This isn't right. The hallway. It's..." He turned toward me suddenly, face pale in the beam of his flashlight. "I'm fine," he said, voice strained, but then he looked ahead. His expression went blank. "Wait, what?" I followed his gaze, and that's when the panic hit me. The hallway had no end, not just extended endless. Every classroom we passed looked identical. Every window reflected the same flickering flashlight beam, repeating it like the building was mocking me. Mark started walking faster. I ran to keep up, but every step I took felt heavier, slower. No matter how fast we moved, the hall went on. I couldn't hear the exit anymore. The stairs, the doors, anything that would lead out. Just the endless, echoing stretch of peeling walls, shattered lockers, and flickering light. "Mark!" I yelled. "Turn around." He didn't respond. His silhouette moved further ahead, then disappeared around a corner that shouldn't exist. I ran toward the last place I'd seen him, but the hallway had shifted. A solid wall where there had been a corner. I slammed my shoulder into it, solid, cold, and then I heard it. A faint, almost imperceptible whisper. Not words at first, just the sound of someone moving beside me, always just at the edge of my hearing. I spun, flashlight swinging wildly, but there was nothing, just the same long hall, stretching endlessly. I tried calling Mark's name, screaming it, panicking. Hours must have passed, I don't know. Time lost meaning. Every turn was the same hallway. Every classroom the same empty shell. The smell of mold and chalk dust and something faintly metallic filled my nose. My throat was raw from yelling. Then, finally, I saw the light of a door ahead. Relief slammed into me. I ran toward it, threw it open, and fell through. I expected the cold night air, the open field outside, the freedom. Instead, it was another hallway. I scrambled back, tried turning around. Nothing. I ran down the hall, and then, just when I felt my legs would give out, I stumbled through another doorway, and the building spat me out onto the front lawn. The night air never smelled so sweet. The stars were normal. The fence was exactly where we had entered. Mark was gone. I called his phone, straight to voicemail. I yelled his name until my voice cracked. The police couldn't find a trace. No footprints inside the building beyond mine. No signs of struggle. Just an abandoned school, waiting silently. I went back once more, during the day, hoping maybe the building would make sense in daylight. I took the same doorway we'd entered. It looked normal, ordinary. The hallway inside was short, maybe 50 feet, just like the blueprint said. But I'll never forget the feeling, the hallway that stretched, the whispers that brushed my ear, the way Mark just disappeared. Sometimes, late at night, I swear I can feel that hallway growing longer somewhere in the world, waiting for someone else to walk in and never come back. I never went back, and I'll never stop wondering what waits at the end of that hallway, and if Mark is still walking it, or if he's just part of it now.